Good evening, good folks, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission General Session for this Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. Note we do have a couple of public comment periods. One is towards the beginning of the meeting on any agenda items. There's also a public comment period at the end of the meeting on any topic you wish to share with the City Commission. Note during public comment periods, it is time for you to share your perspective or input or opinion with the City Commission. It is not necessarily a back and forth or a Q&A time. We can arrange that at an appropriate time, separate from this meeting. If you're in the audience and you wish to give in-person public comment, I encourage you to complete the public comment form at the back of the room. Please provide your name and home address. Note I will not be sharing your home address, nor asking you to announce your home address. That is for our records. For calling in, we do allow call-in comments as well. When we get to that, there will be a phone number scrolling at the bottom of the screen. I will share that right now, so you're prepared. That's 231-724-6721. So when we ask for call-in comments, that's the number to call in. And just muting my phone. Very much. And before we get started with our business tonight, we are going to be led in prayer, followed by Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to be led in prayer by Pastor Adam Dollar from Evanston Avenue Baptist Church. And if you care to join us in either the prayer or Pledge of Allegiance, I ask that you stand if you're so able to do so.
Thank you so much for having me. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day and all of the beauty of today, with the heat, with the storm, God, just displaying your goodness, your power. But now, God, we just invite you here this evening. And Lord, we just pray the prayer of our church that we would join you in your renewal of all things. And so, God, would you help this meeting, these people, strive to that end, Lord, to bring about for this city the justice and the mercy that is found in your heart, God. So give wisdom, give direction, and all of these things. And we pray, come, Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. All right, may we have roll call, please?
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Here.
Commissioner Keener.
Here.
Commissioner German.
Here.
Commissioner Gorman.
Here.
Commissioner Cochin. Absent.
Thank you. All right. Now it's time for public comment on agenda items. I haven't received any forms yet. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to give public comment on an agenda item? All right. We're going to go to the phones. That number is 231-724-6721. If you're calling in, please turn down any audio that's in the background. And then when acknowledged, share your name and if you're a city resident, which neighborhood you're calling from. If you're not a city resident, which other township, village, or city you may be calling from. Oh, and announce which agenda item you're speaking on. All right, doesn't sound like we have any takers for phone-in comments. All right, moving on. Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to review the consent agenda. Are there any items that you wish to have removed for separate consideration and vote? Commissioner German.
Yes, excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. Item C is in cat, and item G.
Okay. Commissioner Kilgo.
I'd like to pull item A separately. Item B is in boy, and item E is in Eric.
All right, any other items? Seeing none, I would welcome a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented, minus items A, B, C, E, and G.
So moved. Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Keener, supported by Commissioner Gorman. There's no discussion? Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner Keener,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right. First item, approval of minutes. Commissioner Kilgo, and I had asked him to pull this. You'll find out why in a moment. Commissioner Kilgo.
Move to amend the approval of the minutes from our last meeting.
Just approve.
Oh. Move to approval of the minutes.
Support.
All right, motion by Commissioner Kilgo, supported by Commissioner Gorman, to approve minutes of the August 12th, 2024 City Commission Work Session meeting and the August 13th, 2024 City Commission General Session meeting. All right. I'll explain in a minute why that's happening, but right now we're just going to go to roll call on this item. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gorman,
You're gonna vote before we.
Well, unless you have discussion about the minutes. Do you have any discussion about the minutes?
Yes, I would like to know what we're amending.
We're not amending anything.
Okay, so
The minutes,
I mean, what is
the minutes that are in the packets being approved. I'll explain in a minute why we're doing this.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
But we're just we're just adopting the minutes as presented. Yes.
Okay.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yeah.
Commissioner Keener,
Yes.
Commissioner German.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So there was, with regard in the minutes, there was a reference to the amendment that we made to the PUD that added the parking, the additional condition for parking. Our conversation at the last meeting was around on-street parking and the addition of on-street parking, and then the wording in the motion misspoke and said off-street. And so the motion references off-street. Our discussion and intent was with regard to on-street parking. And so we just need to correct that. And that's not something that you could just amend the minutes on. This is something that requires a separate motion. And so the motion that has been shared with me is essentially the same as the one. We're just swapping out off-street for on-street. And let me pull that up. Wow, I got a lot of emails today. Where did that go? There it is. So that would be,
What page?
I
is
would-
that, Mayor?
welcome a motion to amend the PUD to add an additional condition that on-street parking, inclusive of handicap parking, be placed to the north of the structural retaining wall at Public Road E's northerly bend. So the only change from the motion that we previously approved at our last meeting is swapping out off-street for on-street and the specification of Public Road E.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kilgo, supported by Commissioner Gorman. And so since this is a clarification and an amendment to the PUD, if this is, Commissioner Coach is not here, it's going to come back for a second reading regardless because we're missing one commissioner. So, any discussion before we go to roll call on correcting this? Or
Okay, now, yes, okay, now what was the original motion?
the original motion was to amend the PUD to add an additional condition that off-street parking, inclusive of handicap parking, be placed to the north of the structural retaining wall at the road's northerly bend, Public Road E's northerly bend.
And we voted in favor of that.
We voted in favor of
Yeah.
that, but our conversation was on-street parking. The motion referenced off-street parking.
Okay.
And so our intent was not to require the developer to build an additional parking lot. It was to confirm what our expectation from the meeting before that one for on-street parking. And so we're just correcting that so it's understood.
Say that again.
It's just changing it from off-street to on-street. Because as it's worded right now with off-street, it would require the developer to build a parking lot.
Right.
And so that was not our intent. Our intent was for on-street parking being added at that section of Public Road E, which was our expectation from last month, but we were just going to leave it on DPW to build and add that. And in this case, we changed it so that it is part of the PUD. It's crystal clear. There's an expectation that there will be on-street parking there. It just so happened that the wording of the motion said off-street when we meant on-street. So that's simply what we're correcting here.
I'm sorry. It was my understanding that this whole discussion was around off-street parking, requiring them to build an additional off-street parking. So I can
No.
see why it got confused in minutes because I too was confused.
Now I might understand more of your
Yes.
concerns or opposition
Yes.
in the last go around to the amendment. All right. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner Keener.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, that will return to our consent agenda next go around, since we're missing one commissioner. All right, thank you, commissioners. On to item B, 30-day extension of the STR short-term rental registration pause. Commissioner Kilgo.
Point of information, right quick.
Yep.
Our consent agenda, we agreed to consent to the other items. 2 of those are zoning items. If our 7th commissioner does show up, can we amend that to pull those 2 items?
Certainly.
Okay.
And revisit them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Just because they'll have to come back because she's not here, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, we do that for all of them then. We could do them for all of them then. The beauty one and the other zoning ones if that happens. So yes,
Okay.
if we end up having a full house by the end of the night, we could revisit those.
Okay. Thank you.
So they're unanimous on the first, if she supports them,
Thank you.
for them to be unanimous.
Motion to extend the short-term rental registration pause by 30 days, expiring on Tuesday, October 8th, 2024.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Kilgo, supported by Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Kilgo.
We have had this moratorium in place for 6 months, and we just talked about it at our last meeting. And believe it or not, these pauses have affected the market as a whole in our community. There's currently 435 properties available for sale in Muskegon County. And there are some people that are hesitant to buy houses right now. Lots of different reasons. This is not the only one, the moratorium. But I really think that we need to get our rules and regulations in place ASAP. And as of right now, I'm just not in favor of the 30-day extension of the house.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Any other questions or comments before we go to Commissioner Keener?
Quickly refresh my mind why we specifically put 30 days so that we could work on what again?
So following staff's presentation at the work session earlier this month, there were a couple questions that the commissioners had for the staff to look into to possibly tweak a proposal, specifically regarding to if there were areas within the census tract proposal that we could carve out. The DDA and the Lakeside Business Improvement District were specifically among those, and then to also look into the matter of if the licenses could be transferable.
Okay.
Yeah,
I remember
so
now. Okay.
so just to make sure on how our meeting schedules fall, the 30-day extension would allow staff to come back on the September 9th meeting with that information, and then potentially vote on that on the September 24th meeting, which would get us pretty close to that deadline, or even at that same meeting on the 9th, if we want.
Okay.
Yep.
I remember we wanted to dot all our I's and cross all our T's as best we can. And I'm still in favor of the pause because, like Rebecca had brought up before, every time you push the needle, something else is going to always move. And that's just a continual thing. But in order for us to be most effective, I really do believe that this is something that we need to continue to have in place right now, because what's 30 days for anybody buying a house right now? And, Airbnb season is that if that is a reason, first off, I know we need income in the community. Great to have people come in, but I would rather see people in houses that actually live here versus short-term rental. So 30 days is no big fluff to me when it comes down to something so vital.
Thank you, Commissioner Keener. Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, City Manager Cypher, for that clarification. Also, I've spoken to some citizens and business owners with the short-term rentals, and they expressed their concerns, and I let them know that the commission is actually doing what's in the best interest to make sure that we move forward. And as Commissioner Keener said, cross all our T's and dot our I's. City Manager, you mentioned also during this 30-day pause, if passed, they will be looking at policies on transferring licenses when sold. That was one of the issues and a concern that one of the residents, short-term rental owners had. Are we going to have any more discussion on those when
Yes.
you guys take a look at that?
Yeah, so it'll come back at the September 9th meeting, which is a joint work session commission meeting. And so we'll have that discussion at the beginning of the meeting, along with a couple other discussion items. Depending on how that goes, we will tentatively have it on the agenda for voting on later that day. If not, we can always postpone it to the second meeting in September. So
Okay.
so there will be another opportunity to weigh in, but those were the three. Well, really, I guess it's two topics. The carve out is in two different areas, and then the transferability was the other. And I was under any other business kind of give an update on what kind of staff discussion and some of the things that we've done a little bit of research on those two topics, just to let you guys know what it is we're thinking or what questions we might potentially have come up in that regard.
Okay. And one of the questions asked, and I thought about it myself, will any of the, short-term rental owners or business owners be able to participate in any of these discussions before they bring this back to the commission? That be open to the public?
Well, the work sessions are open to the public.
Yeah.
I have been communicating with a number of short-term rental owners who've reached out to me, and there are a number of we did have a roundtable with short-term rental owners previously in the summer, and some of that feedback was taken into consideration.
Okay,
So
good.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thank you. We've been working on this for a really long time, and I think it would be a great disservice if we don't take the time that we need to do it right. I don't think 30 days is going to make or break the market, but I think it could make or break the progress that we've been making on this. I've probably gotten more feedback on this particular topic than any other item that has come before us. Sustained feedback for months and years now. People have super strong feelings about this, and on both sides, and I want to be respectful of everyone's needs, and I think taking the time to do it correctly will show people that we are listening and that we are being respectful of competing interests. I also want to put a plug for staff looking at, and maybe you've already done this, and if you have, we'll move right along. I am concerned about the first come, first serve grab at the Beechwood Bluffton is maxed out if we move forward with what we have proposed as this lakeside. And those are by far the most sought after locations, and I'm sure that those licenses will be a very popular commodity if we adopt this. And I would like to see some consideration done for folks that don't already have 1 or 2 or 10 Airbnbs in the community. If we're talking about really wanting this to be a business opportunity, I would like it to be distributed in an equitable way. So if that is not part of your consideration that staff are working on right now, I would again request that make it back into the list, because I think that's really important.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Any other questions or comments on the pause, the extension, 30-day extension? Commissioner Kilgo.
Yep, just one last comment. Our lovely friends at our Tiny Digs PUD, their property is currently for sale right now on the market. It's pending, actually. I was told today that they don't need any special approval to transfer their. It's assumable. The PUD is assumable. So I would love this city to make sure that we have at least a good, healthy discussion about making licenses transferable, because they'll help those property owners' property values stay intact, as opposed to if they're not assumable or transferable, or maybe even transferable with an approved application, like a liquor license would be. I just would like for that to be something that we talk about and discuss.
To Commissioner Kilgo. Yes, Mr. Manager.
Just a point of order. We got a notification that folks are having a hard time hearing your mic.
Oh,
So
okay. Sorry.
sorry.
I thought I had a
Yeah.
boisterous voice, but I don't need to repeat that, do I?
I heard it. We can,
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
You're welcome to.
It's stuff we're going to talk about later. So
Yeah,
it's-
yeah, we're
okay.
going to be delving into this, and try not to. Okay, I'm gonna stick to the 30-day pause. I was gonna give some additional thoughts on policy as staff's looking at updating and amending, but I'll stick to the 30-day pause right now and share my thoughts. Reinforce my thoughts with Mr. Manager and Development Services team, which includes concern for the potential for transferability. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Keener,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Thurman,
Excuse me.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo.
No.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item C, write-off of loan to Boomtown Market LLC, balance thereof. Commissioner German.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Move to write off $60,164 $60,164.71 in unpaid debt owed by Boomtown Market LLC as presented.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Vice Mayor St. Clair. All right, welcome, sir.
Good evening.
Care to introduce yourself, please, and report out on this?
Sure. My name is Jake Eckholm. I'm the Director of Development Services for the City of Muskegon. So this item comes before you, as you may recall, several years ago in the Lakeview Lofts building, there was a small format grocery store business model that called Boomtown Market that started up in that location right on Western Avenue. They sought from us an additional economic development loan on top of their traditional financing and their loan from Northern Initiatives and GROW, Grand Rapids Opportunities for Women. They fit the parameters of the economic development revolving fund policy at that time. We were a lender of last resort. They acceded to a 5-year term at prime interest plus 2%, which I think gave them a 7.5% interest rate, which is now just prime, but at the time it was prime plus 2%. They opened midsummer and did pretty well for their first several repayment on their payment schedule, and then in the wintertime, obviously traffic slowed down pretty drastically. They asked us to be on interest-only payments for the winter, which we accepted, and then they really struggled during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which really limited foot traffic for most of the 2020 season for them. They were very reliant on summer foot traffic in the downtown area. From there, they never quite recovered and ended up eventually going into business bankruptcy, at which point their assets, which we had position on for this loan, were auctioned by a third-party receiver, which was a law firm, and we did not receive any payback for those because we were in third position behind the traditional lenders and Grand Rapids Opportunities for Women and Northern Initiatives. The monies fetched by those auctioned items did not satisfy all of that debt and therefore did not allow us to recoup any of our debt. So at this point, our internal finance policy dictates that it is classified as bad debt, and any bad debt over a certain financial threshold needs to be written off by vote of the City Commission. The auditors have also highlighted it as something that needs to be formally written off. So that's what brings it before you tonight.
Thank you, Director Eckholm. Commissioner German.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Director Eckholm, for the explanation. Okay, so we're writing off the loan due to those circumstances, and it did say something in the detailed summary and background. Let me pull that back up. That there was significant medical
There was.
issues also that I guess
Yeah, I would,
contribute to the situation also.
sure, due to that person's right to medical privacy, I would hesitate to go into detail. But yeah, they had other issues that were making it also difficult to keep regular hours at that time, even after the worst of the pandemic was over. And by then, things were already quite behind, both for us and other bills.
I guess a question would be: have we done this for any other business before that city loan gave loans to businesses or small businesses?
Oh, certainly, yeah. There's been several other businesses that have taken on economic development revolving loans. We have one active right now with Unruly Brewing for their canning line. We had one for Terrace Cuts, which is a barbershop,
I remember
and
that.
I think that one just recently paid off. And then I believe in the past, before my tenure here, there have been others as well.
But we didn't pay those off. We didn't
Write those off?
write those
I
off.
believe there's been at least one other before my tenure here
Okay.
that was written off, but I can't quote. Yeah, I can't quote specifically the details.
Oh,
But
and-
this is effectively due to the attorney is nodding and he's been here longer than me. So
We did for steel coating, and we have for some other small businesses, usually one person, not much assets, high risk. We wrote off a lot of those in the early years.
Right. Okay. And my next question, thank you, Councilman, City Council. So what does the city get in return as for collateral or anything like that? I mean, we're writing off this debt, and where is the money coming from? To write
we're
this
not
off? Oh,
receiving this money back. This is writing off bad debt. So this
Yeah.
is effectively us writing it off our books, acknowledging that we are not going to have this money returned to us. So
Right.
the initial loan was $55,000. In that, we received a total payment of $13,933.12, mostly through interest-only payments, some principal and interest payments. So the $60,000 and change that's being asked to being written off, that is also inclusive of accrual of interest on that unpaid principal. So
we're at a loss with
Oh, yeah.
this. Yeah.
certainly, yeah.
Taxpayers' money, right?
Not technically, it's Economic Development Fund money, which was legacy money given to the city by Sappy Fine Paper when they exited the community. So it's public trust money, it is not taxpayer money.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, have some hesitation when it comes to that. We do these things in good faith, and businesses, sometimes take risks, and I understand that. Hardships come up. So just wanted to get some clarification on why we're looking to do this. So.
Yeah, effectively because our finance policy dictates that we do write it off if it's non-collectible. And at this point, after the auction of the fixed assets that we had debt position on were auctioned, and we were not in position to get any of that money because there were other lenders ahead of us. And again, I would remind the commission that the Economic Development Revolving Program is designed to be a lender of last resort for small businesses. So it's not meant to be our first position lender. These are always going to be relatively insecure, high risk loans. And that's, as the program is designed, is to help small businesses get over the finish line and get open, acknowledging that we're taking that risk. So it's not a happy item, but it is
Yeah.
fitting with the program, the risk that we take.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Commissioner
Thanks,
Sherman. Madam Clerk, who was the supporter? I can't remember the supporter or second.
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
All right, Vice Mayor St. Clair, you're up next.
So for someone who is not an economic development first language speaker, so we made a loan, the economy fell out, COVID hit, medical issues happened, the business went into bankruptcy. There were other entities ahead of us in the line for the payout. All of the business assets have been auctioned off. All of the assets have been distributed to people who were ahead of us in line. There are no more assets.
None that we had any legal position on, yeah.
And we still have this debt on our books, which requires us to do this basically a bookkeeping effort.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Kogo.
Yes. So do we use a third party for the loan? Or does it just come from a fund?
So it comes from a capital fund here that's stewarded by the city's finance department, which is the Economic Development Fund. Yeah.
Awesome. So my only question is, the loan was for $55,000. Is it normal for us to pay back ourselves the interest? Because if we have to write off $60,164.71, but the loan was only for 55,000, if you could just explain that, because I don't understand
Yeah.
why we would write off the interest
So,
or so.
sure, that's actually a great question. So, from an accrual accounting perspective, a public finance perspective, the city is owed that much money because the interest was unpaid on that remaining principal. So, and as any private debt, if you miss a principal payment, now you're going to pay more in interest over the life of that loan because you didn't pay down that principal. So, from a bookkeeping standpoint, we are technically owed that money per the loan agreement and the amortization schedule for that loan. And so it's really to write off what we are owed based on the performance of the loan itself. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kogo. Any other? Commissioner Keener.
When it was decided to approve this loan, I'm sure there was a business plan in place, and you all, whomever decided to say, okay, we're going to do this loan, that business plan looked okay for you all? Because I've been in there, not to down it, but it was not an ideal grocery place. It was just the plan. It didn't not worth me handing over no money for it. It just was not a good plan. So you all didn't. No one had the foresight that maybe this would not work, especially already having 2 loans out.
I think, at the risk of sounding as though I'm editorializing, what was submitted on the business plan versus the actual finished product that was delivered in the space was there was substantial deviations.
Okay. And lastly, has this ever been, has a loan ever been wrote off for a person of color that has received a loan in the city?
I don't know. All the other ones that we've written off were prior to my tenure with the city. Yeah, I can say that after a certain point, the finance policy simply states that if we're not in a collectible position, then we're obligated to write off the amount. So
Okay.
that wasn't given consideration is the best thing I can say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just asking the questions I know the people out there would ask.
No, it's a fair question,
Because
yeah.
we give a lot of grace to certain color people. And I just want to make sure that those questions are, I'm saying what the people would say and are thinking.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Our division strives to give the same amount of grace to everybody, so I appreciate the question. I think the city attorney looks as though he may.
Perhaps we can talk with him.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
That's fine.
Thank you, Commissioner Keener. Before I go back to you, Commissioner
everybody
German.
else?
Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to add or ask right now? All right, thank you. Commissioner German.
Yes. I guess my question, moving forward, when a business comes for a loan, such as this capital and economic development loan or whatever, are there parameters or can we put stipulations on the loans? So if something happens such as this, and I know you said this was part of the policy also, which justifies writing it off, if I follow you correctly.
Yes.
Yep. But how do we secure some collateral or protection so this doesn't continue to happen?
Sure. I think the question really comes down to what you're trying to accomplish as an organization with an economic development revolving loan fund. So again, the policy is meant to be a lender of last resort. So if somebody does not have senior debt, bank financing, if they haven't solicited other source of funds, if they have assets that we find and say, oh, you have $100,000 in a bank account, why would we issue this loan? Then the existing policy as it's written dictates that we are to recommend denial. And so these are really meant, as it's written, to be loans for folks that have put together all the capital that they can and they're short. And so given the fact that they've put together all the capital that they can, in most cases, they are going to have that the assets leveraged by those people that are in a more senior position, so banks and other non-traditional lenders. So, this loan program precedes pretty much everybody working in economic development at the city at this point. I would like to make some edits to it, and those are on our agenda to propose some edits to you. I can tell you that they wouldn't securitize the city any better necessarily, because again, if we make it a lending of first resort, then you're going to see folks that will come to us before they come to a bank, which would allow us to secure better. But again, that also comes with added obligations from us as the primary lender on a project. And also we don't have the liquid capital to be able to lend the amounts of money that people usually need from their senior lender. So my point is, we'd love to bring edits. I think they're really more edits as to how this program works operationally, rather than necessarily resulting in us being any better secured in future programs.
Yeah,
Mr.
because
Manager,
it really
you
don't have a
okay?
safety net or anything for the city, and that's what I'm looking
It
at.
depends on the loan too, so there may be fewer people ahead of us on a given. So as an example, on another loan I mentioned earlier that's for equipment, a piece of equipment related to an existing business, we're the only people in position on that particular piece of equipment. So we're better secured in that particular loan than we were not the only lender in the business expansion. So it just depends on the terms and conditions of the actual specific project as well.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Manager, something to add?
Yeah, but just kind of sum it all up, at the end of the day, by being a lender of last resort, as this program has been designed, we're taking on a fair amount of risk if something was not to go forward, and we're simply following policy as it has been designed and in place for a number of years.
And I think the policy was put in place to effectively try to promote small business development in our commercial corridors.
All right. If there's no further discussion or questions, roll call, please.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner Keener,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, E, rooftop solar lease. Commissioner Kilgo.
Motion to authorize staff to enter into a lease with Sunwealth LLC for space on Trinity Health Arena rooftop for the installation of photovoltaic solar energy generation equipment.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kilgo, supported by Commissioner German. Welcome, sir. We care to introduce yourself and give us a report on this item?
Evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Dan Vanderheid. I'm the Director of Public Works for the city. This item is effectively a piece of paperwork associated with a project that I've been in front of you several times now for, or at least most of you. So at least 2 years ago, and I believe it was more like 2.5, we came back to you after market conditions had changed in the solar market, I guess I'll say, based on tax law changes, and a project that had long been under consideration, which was putting solar panels on the roof of the arena, again became viable. So we worked with the local company, whose name is Chart House Energy, and they worked with a national capital firm called Sunwealth LLC to help us effectively build those solar panels on the roof of the arena and reduce our electric bills at the arena accordingly. There were a lot of legal agreements that went into that, and you all, or most of you again, were involved in the approval of those. And the good news is that the system has been operating for a little over, or I think a little under 6 months or so, and been helping reduce our electric bills at the arena. The bad news is, throughout that process, one of the pieces of paperwork was effectively missed, and that was a lease granting Sunwealth the ability to put that, I guess the legal property rights, we'll call them, to put that system on the roof of the arena. They own a system, we own an arena, and there was no agreement saying they could put their system on our arena. And this lease agreement fixes that and gives them that legal document and gives us that certainty. for you tonight to simply close that loop and continue to operate the system as it has been for about 6 months.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Vanderhyde.
Awesome. I just have a couple questions. Because there's no central air system in our arena right now, and so we don't do a lot with our arena in the warm summer months. If we were to put an HVAC system in there, I just look at the drawing that was in our packet. So those panels are already up there, is what you're saying. Gotcha. Is there room, or would any of those have to move for us to renovate the HVAC system at the arena? Do you know the answer?
I don't know specifically, but I can say that the system probably would have to be revised to have some panels. Designed the system, they covered as much of the roof as the arena staff and the building department were comfortable with.
So if we enter into a lease agreement with this company, we may not be able to have them move some of their solar panels. The reason I ask is because we all know that the arena is not a money making, it doesn't even break even every year. So if we were to say, hey, we're going to upgrade some of the arena so we can generate revenue during the summer months and get that, out of a deficit position, we'd probably need to put some sort of central air system in there. And I'm not an engineer, so I don't know this, why I'm asking those questions. So I'm just curious if this lease is already written up, or if there was some way for us to say, hey, if we had to move 2 or 3 panels to put a condenser here or whatever, would we be able to do that? That's what I'm thinking. I'm kind of forward thinking because I don't want to have the arena cost us negative $500,000 every year, which that's not the number. I'm just saying, like, we need to try to get the arena out of the negative, and so I'm just kind of future thinking with the solar panel thing.
I will confess I'm not sure whether the lease agreement or the other agreements that we've already approved specifically contemplate changes to the equipment on the roof. What I can say is that I know they're very partnership-oriented agreements. In other words, Sunwealth recognizes that it's our facility and that there are many things that could change over the course of 25 years. We have several ways out of those agreements. They have several ways out of those agreements. So I can't say specifically this evening for you whether it contemplates, removing a few panels here and there for HVAC upgrades. I can say that the agreements are written with a partnership in mind, and so my belief is that the tenants in those agreements and in this one would allow for us to come to an agreement on something like that.
So you're comfortable if, because it's an if, we haven't said we're going to do that, but if we were to do that, you're comfortable that they would work with us so that we could get it done?
I am, and I'm further comfortable because both we had a very knowledgeable attorney recommended by our council review all these agreements, who has done these systems before, and further, Chart House Energy is a city-based business. They've been great partners in this process, and I have the utmost confidence that they would work there, help that happen if it was needed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Commissioner German, anything to ask or add as the support of the motion?
No, Mayor, I don't have any.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Gorman.
I just wanted to check the version of the packet I'm looking on doesn't have legal review checked on this. Was it done?
Yeah, Miller Canfield was retained counsel on this matter, and they
Okay.
reviewed this.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
My apologies.
That's okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. All right, if there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner Keener,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item G, modify the MERS Defined Contribution Plan Adoption Agreement. Does the Michigan Employee Retirement System. MERS. Okay. I was using an acronym here, so I want to make sure people know. Modify the Michigan Employee Retirement System Defined Contribution Plan Adoption Agreement. Commissioner German.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt the modification to all the MERS defined contribution plans, allowing lump sum payments of comp time.
Good evening.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Commissioner Kilgo. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kenneth Grant, Finance Director. If you look at your package, we actually have two. We have one for the defined contribution and the defined benefit. So a week or so ago, MERS contacted me and just noticed that we didn't have one box check for our comp time. So what that allows, a lot of times people take overtime and they don't take the overtime in the pay period and they defer it. So by definition of deferring the overtime is comp time. So MERS just wanted me to come back to the commission and make sure we check that box. So when people take their overtime a month or delayed overtime payment, it goes towards their defined contribution or defined benefit plan.
Thank you, Director Grant. Commissioner German.
Oh, yes, thank you. Okay, thank you, Director Grant, for that clarification. So often does comp time accumulate with employees for them to actually want to address this, or was a concern with MERS?
It's we've been doing it overall. We've been just calling it overtime, and then MERS is like, well, it's technically not overtime; it's comp time. So particularly in our not police and fire contracts, they earn comp time and they cash it out sometimes once a year or twice a year. So it's primarily for police and fire, but other units like DPW may have that too. But so I just wanted to cover everyone in the city to make sure everyone is getting their benefits reported to MERS.
Okay, all right. And is there like a cap on how much comp time they can accumulate, or?
No, it's basically it depends on the department. The department, police department, fire, they have to approve overtime. So every time overtime is approved, it's not unlimited overtime.
Okay.
They can't just do it on their own. They have to get a prior approval.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner German. Commissioner Kilgo, anything to ask or add?
No questions.
All right. Commissioners, anything else? No? All right, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Yes.
Mayor Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Yes.
Commissioner Keener. Yes. Commissioner German.
Yes.
Commissioner Bowman. Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Grant. All right, that concludes the items pulled from our consent agenda. Moving on to any other business. You had something to raise?
So I
Mr.
just
Manager?
wanted to follow up on a couple of the items from the presentation 2 weeks ago regarding short-term rentals. Specifically, the two items that I had mentioned earlier, and as the Vice Mayor noted, the selection. I haven't dug into that one, so I'm probably not going to expound on that too much right now. The part that I'm going to start out with is talking about the carve-outs specifically related to the DDA and the Lakeside bid. There had also been other carve-outs that were discussed, whether they are HOAs or PUDs, things of that nature. Looking at it, logistically there are challenges, but I think if the objective is to encourage short-term rentals within the DDA and the Lakeside bid, there is a way to do that, and we would just have to make sure that we're very precise about how that would work, and then how that applies to the two tracks that they are in, and with the objective here being that we're encouraging short-term rentals in those two districts. The reason I'm using that terminology is because if we look at it from another way, where we're looking at the PUDs and HOAs that do not allow short-term rentals, and if we're excluding those, that becomes much grayer.
I have a suggestion for that.
Okay.
That came to mind and I haven't had to share with you.
Okay.
So rather than excluding PUDs from any kind of cap, just treating them separately. So if you want to do 4%, do 4% on a census tract, but the PUD gets a 4%, and the rest of the census tract gets 4%. So they're still got 4%. They may not take advantage of it, but everyone still has the same cap. But you're not there's a propensity for PUDs to not allow short-term rentals, and so if you have a bunch of units in a PUD that then factors into the calculation for the entire census tract, it pushes or it creates opportunity to push a higher number of short-term rentals in a concentrated area of the neighborhood. So that was my concern raising that before, and so I was wondering perhaps rather than just separating them, giving them the same 4%, but they're treated differently. Does that track?
Yeah, it tracks. I think I'd probably want to talk with staff a little bit more about that. The one, just off the top of my head, concern I have is that not all of our census tracts have PUDs, but we do have census tracts that have things that are like PUDs that have higher density of residential, and how does that impact that, and how are we looking at that equitably? So if the number of housing units isn't just the number of rooftops, it's the number of sorry, my brain just
Dwelling units.
Dwelling units, thank you. With underneath those rooftops, so you could have a rooftop that has 12 in there if it's an apartment complex, and how do those things mesh together? So I just want to make sure that whatever direction we go with this, there's some level of balance, for lack of a better term. And that's why I was looking at with the DDA, if we carved it out to incentivize, that's a different reason than carving out to minimize or cap, if that makes sense. So I guess again, I want to talk with staff, and I can do that tomorrow morning. If the PUDs would do 4%, and how does that work through? But there's still those other questions that I have about a couple other areas of the city that have some more densely populated areas, and how those two things track.
That makes sense. Yeah.
The other topic that came up was transferability, and staff has some serious concerns about doing transferability. The biggest concern that we have is, and the example that we can think of is cab medallions or taxi medallions in the city of New York. And so there was a finite number of those, and that became a product that had a value to it that people would sell. And not saying that people would necessarily sell their short-term rental registration because it would be tied to the property, but are we introducing a factor into the market that would have an impact on the value of the properties if those were to be sold? The other aspect that staff had talked about with concern to transferability is, particularly when you're looking at Beechwood Bluffton, which is over that 4% mark, and then if we were to change that with the PUD, and then which would pull out Harbortown, that would be an even higher. The goal of attrition would take a lot longer if there's the transferability. With that being said, I have talked to a number of short-term rental property owners who are very keen on the transferability factor, and if that is something that that the city agreed to, this might become a more, I don't want to say more palatable, but it might make them more comfortable. Might be the right way to say it. But staff does still have those concerns about transferability and how that works. And what is our end goal here? Is the end goal to kind of stop the growth in the areas where it's gotten above that 4% mark and to attrition it down, or is it just to cap it where it's at and allow it to continue? And that's a policy question for the board. This keeping in mind the staff doesn't necessarily have opinions on this. The staff is letting you know what our concerns are, where we see logistical hurdles if we were to try to implement these types of additional criteria to that. And so those are the things where we've had the most conversation on how that would work. Logistically, from writing in the ordinance, it wouldn't be difficult. From an ordinance perspective, it's very straightforward. I think the question is what's the goal at the end of the day that the commission wants to achieve, and how do we best get there? And we want to do this right. It doesn't mean that we can't come back and tweak it at some point in time if we need to, but we want to make sure whatever we do at the outset is the right thing to do. So that's where we're sitting right now with those. I would like to hear some feedback about whether if thank you staff for your concerns. We still want to see this happen this way. That's fine. We serve at your pleasure. We have no problem with that. But I just want to make sure that I'm presenting what our thoughts and concerns are and what conversations that we've had on both sides of the fence. Anecdotally, I will note, and I can't remember if I brought this up 2 weeks ago, so I apologize. I have had communication from residents who have noticed a difference this summer regarding properties for sale. Actually, I did talk about this. Now I'm thinking about it. And I have had communication, a lot of communication with short-term rental owners over the past 2 weeks. Very great communication, very productive conversations, wanting to find solutions forward, which is how the transferability conversation kind of evolved a little bit there. So, And with that, I'll stop talking.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I appreciate you updating us on the policy review process and taking into account feedback received at the prior discussion. Thank you in particular for looking at how we might be able to incent or encourage or allow more short-term rentals within the Downtown Development Authority boundaries as well as the Lakeside Business Improvement District. And you're continuing to look at the question around PUDs or HOAs or other dense apartment complexes and what the implications thereof are with the limits. With regard to the transferability, so I'm just going to speak on this and we're going to open it to each commissioner. If you could just share your remarks, not looking to go around one time. Share your remarks, feedback, thoughts on it, because this is not an open discussion around this policy at this time, but to give your feedback based on what the Mr. Manager just shared. With regard to the transferability piece, I would like us to give more thought to how we might be able to accommodate that reasonably. I understand that if we were to allow permits to be transferred with sales, that would slow the pace of attrition potentially, in the two census tracts that already exceed the 4% cap. But when thinking that these property owners and business owners who acquired these properties and invested considerable capital, some of them their entire savings or most of their savings or retirement savings, in a city at the time that this was perfectly legal and not restrictions, and so they were conforming to what zoning and law was at that time and making good faith investments in this community. And so I struggle with establishing policy that precludes them from that would undermine their return on investment. And so I wonder how we can do that. I think this is the case also for because I learned recently, I didn't realize that when a rental property is sold, period, whether it's long-term or short-term, when a rental property is sold, apparently the permit does not automatically transfer. The new property owner has to register and obtain that permit. And so what I'm wondering is, would it be sensible for us, when there's a property transfer, that the permit would transfer with the property up until the next renewal cycle? They would then have to renew and register normally. And if the short-term rental owner and operator, the new one, failed to do so, they would then, forfeit their permit. So the onus would be on the new buyer to follow through on that. And if they don't, then they'd forfeit it. And if it's in a census tract that already has the limit, they would be at the back of the line, so to speak, or go through a lottery system, if that's the way we go. But I would like us to give further consideration to how reasonable abilities to do transfers. Further consideration of that. So those are my thoughts on the matter right now. So I'm going to open up to any other feedback from the commissioners. Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, City Manager, for bringing that topic up, because that was one of the concerns that I heard from property owners, short-term rental owners, is to transfer of the property or the permit. What that looks like, I'm not sure. You're working on that, you and your staff. I just want to make sure that we do it in a way that's not putting the city at uh, at risk or anything like that, or showing any type of, I would say, favoritism to certain property owners who have multiple homes, or and also have concerns also about business owners coming in buying up these properties, and people that's residents that's living in these properties are not able to go find housing somewhere else because due to the fact they want to turn these into Airbnbs, and so that's a concern. But yeah, particularly the permit transfer was a huge issue for most owners that I've spoke with. What does that look like? How do we go about it? And let's do it, in a way that's equitable and no backlash on us.
Thank you, Commissioner German.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or feedback at this time? Commissioner Kogo.
Thank you. I think that staff should make the transferability just a separate item because we need a policy in place for short-term rentals. All summer long, if someone wanted to buy a Airbnb on the east side of the city or in a census tract that is not over, they were unable to this summer. So us getting that policy in place and having a separate line item from the transferability so that we can get it in place. The mayor spoke to small business owners who have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into some of the properties. Beechwood Bluffton district homes are going to be expensive, whether we allow people to transfer a license or not. So if a license Airbnb owner said, you know what, I'm going to retire, I'm going to put the house on the market, they're not going to put the house on the market under market value. They're going to still want market value. It's one of the most expensive markets in our city. So those homes are still going to be expensive. But at the same time, if a house in Beechwood Bluffton goes up for sale, it doesn't mean that a small business owner is going to buy that property. That property could easily be sold to an owner occupant. It's just going to be sold to a person that can afford houses in that neighborhood. Same with Lakeside, not as expensive as Bluffton, but the property values of homes are going to be what the property values of homes are. So whether we allow transfers or not, if we think about the neighborhoods that are the most expensive, some of those may sit vacant for a while if until somebody who can afford them comes along, purchase it. So those are just some of the things that I was thinking about. But I definitely would like us to get a policy in place so people in other parts of the city can invest in our city. The Airbnbs in certain parts of our city are a lot more expensive than Airbnbs would be in other parts of our city, so more people can come and visit our beautiful city.
Thank you, Commissioner Kogo. Any other thoughts to share right now, commissioners? Commissioner Gorman.
Yes, I'd also support work to make transfers available again, like we were talking about, those who have privately invested in these investment properties in our city as small business owners. And I apologize for not mentioning this earlier, but I just want to be transparent with city staff and my colleagues on the commission. I did vote in favor of the 38-day extension. That is the only time I will be voting in favor of any extension moving forward. Disappointed that we couldn't get the result that some of you were looking for within 6 months. If we can't make it happen in 7 months, I'm not able to support our city staff dedicating continued time on something that I, just don't feel is the most important public safety issue for our public safety team to be working on, respectfully. So now you all know where I sit.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. All right. Heard from everyone except for Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Keener, if either one of you, Vice Mayor St. Clair?
I am sympathetic to the investments that people have made. And it's difficult because everyone who lives in that community has also made an investment. And I don't want to cause this to drag on forever. But I also know that, again, the reason why we're talking about this is largely because of the continued concerns for many years now of the folks that live in Beechwood Bluffton who are, speaking plainly, really the only people who are going to be directly impacted by whatever we do in the next 2 years. And if we do go forward with a method for people to sell their license, basically is what it's going to come down to. I think we need to be very careful. I don't know what the answer is. I don't want people to lose out on their investments, whether they are residents or business owners. But I do know that if we do carte blanche transferability, that Beechwood Bluffton will stay at 8% for probably forever, because it is a good moneymaker, and I think that we need to have that in our minds. Are you comfortable with this particular neighborhood always having double the amount of short-term rentals that is given to us as what is good for our community? So I don't have the answer, and I'm not convinced one way or the other is the right. I feel like we need to do something in the middle. Maybe not every license is transferable. Maybe there's certain criteria that we have to meet, because I want to be sympathetic of the people who have invested in their homes, and I want to be sympathetic of the people who have invested in their business. And I feel like there has to be a way that we can see both sides.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Keener, do you have any thoughts to share with us on this topic right now?
I fully have faith in the city manager as well as staff to come up with a plan, or have more conversation within this 30 days, because I'm right here with Commissioner Gorman. I'm not going to vote to amend any further. It's taking up too much time, and I'm pretty much over the STR conversation. Nobody is going to be 100% happy either way it goes, and that's just reality. With every decision we make, nobody is going to be 100% happy, and so I'm just ready for it to be done with. I know you all will get the job done and present us something that we can vote on within 30 days. And we can stop talking about STRs and move on to something else. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Keener.
Point of information, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Is our is our 3-strike policy already in place for short-term rentals? It is already in place.
Yep.
It's in the policy. Yeah.
It was a policy we updated earlier this year. So, okay, we're done with this topic, but it's still any other business. So are there other items to bring up under any other business? Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Last meeting, I got a chance to share with the public and you all that I had the honor to attend the Democratic National Convention. I was elected as a district delegate to support and pledge for the nomination of the first female black vice president, now accept the nomination for the presidency for the United States. And I just kind of wanted to share that that was an honor. It was electrifying to be in a place with like-minded people who had a plan and for the future of the United States, but also talking about things that we should be doing within our own communities. They talked about a place where you could have joy and peace in your communities, going out to do these things. Also, freedom to exercise your rights and your votes. There were people from all over, different ethnic groups, and the unity that was just in that place. And being there, I learned a lot of the process, met a lot of dignitaries, and I just can't express enough about how essential it is to get out and vote. And this here being a nonpartisan um, seat, there were Democrats, Independents, Republicans. Just because someone votes or with another party, don't allow that to divide you. And that's the unity part that I stress, and I've always advocated for that. But this was nationally from the national stage. So we have to get out and vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but please get out and vote and look at the platforms that these candidates are presenting so you can make a good, sound decision on who to vote for. But I'm letting you know I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
Indeed. We encourage everyone to exercise their democratic franchise. So get registered to vote if you're not registered to vote already, and get your neighbors, friends, and families registered to vote as well, so that everyone can participate in the democratic process. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thank you. I wanted to bring up the issue that yesterday was National Women's Equality Day. For those of you who don't celebrate that, I just want to read a little clip. 104 years ago, American white women, won the right to vote with the ratification of the 19th Amendment, bringing us closer to living up our nation's most fundamental values of dignity, fairness, freedom, and equality. On Women's Equality Day, we recognize the courage of generations of visionaries who fought tirelessly for the sacred cause of women's suffrage and all those who continue to work towards a more equitable future for women and girls in America. The 19th Amendment marked a critical milestone in our nation's history, but it did not guarantee the right to vote for all. For many women of color, that right would not be secured until decades later when the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. Today, our nation is still facing relentless assaults on the sacred right to vote freely and fairly and to have every vote count. At the same time, women's fundamental rights are under attack, which undermines our democracy and our freedom. These challenges serve as a critical reminder that our work as a nation is never done. Realizing the full promise of the 19th Amendment is as important today as ever before. And I will say that I am incredibly proud and grateful to serve on a majority woman commission. We are missing one of our female commissioners tonight, but there's always more work to do.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Yeah, and in our city's history, for the first time, with the recent appointment or addition to our planning commission, for the first time in the city's history, both our city commission and planning commission are women majority. So that's. And when I joined the city commission, it would have been 10 years ago, beginning of 2014, there was 0 women on the city commission. So it's wonderful to see the transition from 0 women to now a women majority city commission. So thank you. Any other items for any other business? Okay. I just want to, I was remiss in not acknowledging this at our last commission meeting, but I wanted to acknowledge everyone involved with the National Night Out event that happened at Marsh Field earlier this year. And so that was led by Emily Morgenstern, our community police coordinator in our public safety department. as well as Deborah Sweet Santiago, or Deborah Santiago Sweet, and our community engagement. She's our community engagement manager. So two of them and so many others in our police department and on staff, DPW, as well as all of our neighborhood associations, came together to organize a pretty amazing event at Marsh Field, bringing in many hundreds of residents across our city to come together and for food, fun, and fellowship. And it was just a great time, and I want to acknowledge the folks involved with that, give appreciation and thanks to our neighborhood associations. I see one Jackson Hill Neighborhood Association president, Ms. Billy Thomas, out there. So thank you to all of our neighborhood associations for the excellent work that you do year-round in service to your neighborhood and in partnership with the city for the betterment of Muskegon. And I also want to acknowledge Commissioner Kilgo as well as Commissioner Kochin for participating in the dunk tank at National Night Out. So thank you.
Just a reminder, our first September meeting, the commission meeting's moving. Do you want to?
Oh yeah, we're doing a joint meeting on the 9th, so it'll be the work session.
Yeah,
and
joint,
yeah,
but it's still here.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When you said moving, I was like,
No.
wait, we're going to a different
Various
location?
places.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
you're
we're
doing a
going
joint
to
one
stand
on-
outside in the parking lot. No, but yeah, the date of the commission meeting is moving to the 9th, so it'll be a joint meeting.
Yeah, joint work session,
Yes.
general session on Monday, September 9th, 5:30
Yes.
p.m. And it's looking like there'll be a dedication at 4:30 that day for the new public art installation, the portal. So if you are available to come to that, right now it's being scheduled at 4:30 that day. I hope you're able to join. And then, just a reminder, commissioners, we have a legislative policy committee meeting here tomorrow at 5:30. So that agenda has been shared. Jonathan sent that out, and I think it actually needs to be updated.
It
Maybe
was
recent-
updated
Okay.
while we were sitting here.
All right,
Kim-
perfect.
Kim's on top of it.
So you've got an updated agenda now to take a look at before our meeting tomorrow, 5:30. So unless there's anything else, we're going to go to public comment. Nope. All right. I don't have any forms for public comment from the audience. However, I'm opening up. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to give public comment at this time? You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks. Welcome, sir.
Hey, good afternoon.
Care to
Well,
introduce
good evening.
yourself?
Yes, my name is Rashard Thrower, CEO of the Q9 Development Company and also a resident of Muskegon, Michigan at 701 Orchard Avenue. First, I wanted to say, I wanted to give my appreciation to the commission for, voting in favor of the acquisition of the vacant buildable lots that we are presenting to the city of Muskegon. The reason that we even started on this adventure is because we saw that there was a need, a necessity for attainable and affordable housing, but it was just not becoming financially feasible with the building costs that were just continuously increasing. So we looked for different strategies and different ways that we could be able to do this, and that's where we ended up partnering with the city of Muskegon. And it's been a crazy road for the last few years because it's been a long time coming, but at the same time is very much appreciative just for the simple fact that you all are voting in favor of a product of MPS. I went to all Muskegon public schools from Marquette, Steele, and also Muskegon Public. And we also plan to do certain things with MPS as well. I'm not sure if you all have heard that we won the bid for the Steele Middle School for the redevelopment there. And we're looking to create a new dynamic that's going to be advantageous to the entire community. Also, just to give like a brief overview of what it would somewhat look like, because I didn't have the actual presentation to be able to give it to you digitally, but it would be something similar like this, where we would end up redirecting the football field into like 30 single family houses and restructuring the school into more of like a sports complex, so that way we'll have a unified use of how a holistic use of how we'll actually go about dealing with that property specifically. Also, we're looking into partnering with some emergency services like the fire department, the police department, so that way we can increase response times within the area. And then also, just create some new financially feasible housing for new homeowners, because that's one of the biggest things right now, even in the campaign race right now between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, is that it's just not financially feasible for my generation to be able to try to obtain housing. It's been a very vexing thing, to say the least, even from my own financial background. I have extensive background in banking, from working as an anti-money laundering professional and also working in private banking for two of the top 10 banks within our country, and it's still not even affordable for me. So I can imagine that for someone else that doesn't have even the financial acumen as me, how hard it's going to be for them. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we came in and tried to create a diversified approach to this, and especially with being a young black man as well, this is going to be transformational for the entire city. So I just know that this is a big deal, and I appreciate you all for voting in favor of this and betting on a product of Muskegon Public Schools. This is going to be huge, so I really appreciate you all.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Thrower. Appreciate you joining us this evening, and congrats and best wishes with your future endeavors. And thank you for choosing to grow with Muskegon.
Oh, of course. And for the future, I'll make sure that I send you all a digital copy of this, because I know I'm going to have to present to you all. So I can't wait.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wish to give public comment at this time? Welcome, sir.
My name is Roberto Volate. I live in Bluffton on Walnut Street. I own a couple of short-term rentals and also some long-term rentals, as well as my own home. I moved to Muskegon because I really love it here, and I am smack dab in the middle of all this short-term rental controversy. I purchased my home thinking, this is just my place to retire and relax. And a few years later, I bought another property as a long-term rental. And then, as a matter of circumstances, I had some medical issues that kind of anchored me here very seriously, and I decided to really invest heavily in Muskegon. So I ended up with several long-term rentals, and I also renovated the Bluffton Church into a short-term rental, and I feel like I come from a architectural background. I also owned a construction company. I studied urban planning in college along with my architectural degree, so I understand the need for balance and diversity, and I have very strong feelings about that. I feel that everything I have done here has contributed to that diversity in a healthy way, and that everything I do, I try to do it so it coexists with everybody. And I haven't had one complaint about any of my properties. I've been operating the church as a short-term rental for 7 or 8 years now. Everybody that comes here, I brought the guest book. I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of people who loved coming here. And, this is part of sharing the gratitude I feel from these people makes it all worthwhile. And I designed 2 of these short-term rentals specifically as short-term rentals. So if I'm denied the possibility to use them as short-term rentals or sell them as short-term rentals, I'm basically trying to sell a pair of shoes that doesn't fit anybody. So this is something that's really important, that the transferability of the permit is there, and if the people who buy the property from me eventually don't want to do a short-term rental, God bless them, do whatever they want with it. But I think that because of the investment, and just not just the money, but the time, my energy, it's my passion to have these properties. And if you came and visited them, you'd see why. They're very unique and they're very personalized, and I'm proud of them, and I really hope that the people here listening will consider these things in any kind of decisions that are made that are going to impact me long term.
Thank you, Mr. Velarde.
You.
Appreciate you joining us this evening and sharing your perspective. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to give public comment at this time? Welcome, sir.
Bodman, I live in Bluffton. I just want to piggyback on what Roberta was saying because I bought properties here in Muskegon that the sole focus of them was short-term rentals. And I know others as well that have. So properties on a busy street like Lakeshore Drive. I bought a property with a small kitchen that really is too small for the house. Roberto's Church, obviously. I have a property that's closed for the winter. That's all we do is open it for the summertime. Property on a hill that's 50 steps up that is probably not conducive to being a long-term residence. There are a lot of atypical properties down in the Bluffton Beechwood area that if we aren't allowed to sell them as the investment properties we purchase them as, then we're going to lose a lot of money either trying to transform them into something that they're not, and it's the reason why maybe somebody else didn't buy them long ago. So we have a lot of properties down there that I hope you take into consideration when you're looking through this idea of not allowing us to sell our properties with some transfer of a permit. It would be to the detriment of the investment that all of us have made down there. And I guess lastly, there haven't been any complaints this summer with the new policy that's in place for short-term rentals. So what are we talking about? It was trying to accommodate the folks that are saying that we're too loud, we're too noisy, we're making too much trash. For whatever those reasons are, let's bring those people together and let us work together out here so you don't have to dictate how we do that. Because if you start dictating what we do, clearly maybe both, but certainly those of us that are small amount of us that are owners we're the ones that are going to lose, and that's not fair. I mean, we're part of this community as well. So, thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bodman. Appreciate you joining us to share your thoughts. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to give public comment at this time? Welcome, sir. Care to introduce yourself? And you have up to 3
Jeff
minutes.
Fortenbacher, have kind of two properties down there. Live in 2964 Lakeshore Drive, so Balcombs Cove area, and then also have two short or rental properties that we bought. Point I would like to make here is just, again, people purchase certain properties in that area, like I said, with the idea and under the idea that it actually could be short-term rentals. They made that significant financial event or commitment. And again, to have this kind of pulled out from under you right now, commercial property goes more for than residential. I mean, so we've, in a sense, buying that with the idea that you have a commercial property that can generate more income, and it doesn't have to rely on trying to raise the rent prices or whatever to get that your mortgage and your financial carry on that covered. It doesn't flow. And so for you to change it in the middle of, in a sense, somebody that purchased it with the intent and the idea that they're going to be able to purchase that as a commercial property and then change it has a significant financial impact on that person. Probably about, especially when you go to sell it. And if you don't have the ability to sell it with the idea or with the concept or the ability to keep that as a rental or a short-term rental, you've taken maybe 25% of the cost or the price of that property down, and I think that needs to be considered as a part of this. And we got caught in the same thing that you were just talking about, meaning that bought the property, intended to do a short-term rental on it, and it came up for the next year and it didn't get renewed or whatever, and that we didn't get notification on it, and then basically have to now long-term rental it, and now it doesn't cash flow, and if we try to sell it, we aren't going to be able to sell it for as much as we basically bought it for.
Fortenbacher.
Thank you.
Appreciate you joining us this evening. Anyone else in the audience wish to give public comment at this time? No, no takers for last call. No. All right, we're gonna go to the phones. Phone number is 231-724-6721. This is general public comment now. When you call in, please turn down any audio that's in the background and introduce your name and then share which area of the city you're calling from. And if you're not a city resident, which other city, township, or village you may be calling from. Or state or country. Doesn't look like we have any takers for phone-in comments. All right. Commissioners, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Jermis, supported by Commissioner Kilgo to adjourn. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you. Take care and be well.